Hello everyone, my name is Mishal and you're watching Mishal's Law Series. And on today's episode, we have David with us. He is a barrister in Dean's Chamber and he's a mediator as well. It's an honor to have you, David.
That's very kind. Yeah, nice to see you.
So we will be asking him five short questions related to his legal career, and let's see what he replies. So my first question from you is, what achievement helped you succeed in your career?
I think that's a really difficult one because, I've been doing this now for 30 years. And if you haven't done a lot of things in 30 years, you should be quite worried that you're still doing the same thing again and again. And any given achievement at any given point in time is relative to what you've achieved up to that point. So you're looking for something that's a bit out of the ordinary and a bit unexpected. And actually, when you're driven, and most barristers, I think, are pretty driven sort of people, otherwise they wouldn't be doing the job in the first place. It's hard to see what you've achieved that's above and beyond the norm for somebody at your stage. Um, so getting the pupillage in the first instance wasn't something that surprised me. It was something that I was pushing to do, and it fell into place. I think the first thing that surprised me was getting my red back. I've got you might know that barristers, when they carry their wigs and gowns around, buy a blue bag with their initials embroidered on the side. But you will see barristers with a red bag.
Yeah.
And you only get a red bag if a KC, a silk, gives you a red bag. And they can only hand out one a year. And they're going to want to give it to somebody who's done a proper job and has impressed them. Um, and that normally means, first of all, you've got to be led by a silk, so you're unlikely to get to that position in your career early doors. If you do that really early in your career, then you might not be deemed ready to be good enough to do the work to impress the silk to get the red bag. Um, you might get the wrong silk and it completely disinterested in rewarding you. Um, I had the right silk, the right case, and did the right job. And I was given my red bag the month I took up my tenancy back in October 2000, no, 1996. It
Great.
is really threadbare now because you never
That's
see red
great.
bags at 30 years old. So that I think was probably the first thing that really was an achievement that um, surprised me. That gave me a real sort of thrill to have done
Yeah.
that. I think looking at what I've done in the years since, I genuinely never thought that I would go to the Privy Council. I didn't think I would ever get the chance to appear in front of the Privy Council and to do that case a couple of years back, and particularly to be given the opportunity to put some of the more complicated legal arguments by my leader, who abdicated responsibility for those two particular core points. Um, that's something I never thought I'd achieve. And then somewhere along the line, you write books and you give a talk here and you write a paper there, and next thing you know, you've been recognised as a visiting professor by some university in India that I'd really struggled to find with a Google Maps, I suspect. But I'm incredibly grateful that the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar National Law University recognised me as a visiting professor back in 2022, 23, 22. And my dad would have been so chuffed with that. The thing that was the one thing that I always thought that would have been something he'd have been particularly impressed by. Um, but each thing just opens up the next door to you. And I think what you have to understand, and we might get to it later, is that sometimes we have these sliding door moments that allow you in, and you have a sliding door moment that shuts you out.
Yeah.
And you just have to cope with that. You just have to live with that. Um, so I think we talk about achievements as being sliding doors that open, and who knows what we missed out on en route, just because you weren't in the room. But yeah, those I think are probably my three achievements, that I have a red bag that is um, stupendously old, that I managed to get in front of the Privy Council, and that somewhere along the line I was entitled to call myself professor, none of which I ever dreamed of doing when I was
Mhm.
sitting there as a law student.
That sounds great. My second question from you is what inspired you to become a lawyer?
I'm a problem solver.
Oh, that's great.
I'm just a, I was as a kid. I was always a problem solver. I was not a. I used to get terrible headaches, earaches, because I had problems with my adenoids when I was at primary school, and that allowed me to skive off school quite a lot. And we didn't have a video recorder, and there was a TV show called Crown Court. And you'd watch a couple of episodes, and then you'd have to go back to school and miss out on the ending of any given series because they ran a series which lasted all week. So unless you managed to skive off school for 5 days, you would never see a whole case pan out.
Yeah,
So that interested me in the law generally. My father did a chemistry degree, having done maths, physics, and chemistry at school, and then became an industrial chemist, working in industry. So he would always encourage us to think beyond the basic school subjects. And I think that somewhere along the line, Crown Court, a careers day when I was about 14 or 15, where the accountants seemed really boring, and the solicitor said, we have a shortage of lawyers. I mean, can you imagine? No, we have a shortage of lawyers. This was about 1984, 85, something like that. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then I went off to read law at university because it was something different from what I've been doing at
yeah,
school. And then at the end of my first year, my director of studies, Nigel Porter, and I were sitting outside the college library in our jeans, cut-off jeans and t-shirts. And he asked me whether I thought I'd be a solicitor or barrister, what I'd do next. And when I said the bar, I said, yeah, I'm enjoying practical standing up in the supervision and arguing my case or both sides of a case sometimes. And I'm thinking of going to the bar. He said two things. First of all, I think you're good enough, which coming from him was a size 12 kick up the backside that I probably needed. Um, and he said to me, and this was an abject lie, he said to me that there wasn't a lot of difference between being a city solicitor and being a barrister. You would work ridiculous hours, you would earn ridiculous money, and the main difference was when you were 30, you'd be in a wine bar somewhere, and some gorgeous blonde would say, "What do you do for a living?" And barrister sounded sexier. And of course, what he didn't say was that by the time you're 30, if you're in a wine bar, the chances are you'll be fast asleep because it's Friday afternoon and you've been working all week. But yeah, I think it coalesced at that point that what I'd
yeah.
always really been was a barrister. But the motivation to be a lawyer generally, I think, was just this idea of doing something different.
That's a very, very, very inspiring journey for all of those out there thinking to become a lawyer. My fourth question is my third question, I'm sorry. What is the most rewarding part of your week? Like, what is something that you do and you think, yeah, that is the most rewarding part of my week that I've achieved, particularly on some kind of weekend or any day out?
Every week is different. Okay? Every week is I can spend a week working at home on a set of papers. I can spend a week in chambers working on something. I can be here, there, and everywhere in court. So every week is different, and I think that it would be very easy and trite to say, well, I went home at the end of the week and I put my feet up, and that was a reward in itself. I think the rewards are smaller, more incremental. I don't think there is a what's the best part of your week type moment. I think that what you get is a sense of doing a job and doing it properly. And whether that's an acknowledgement from a judge or from an opponent or from a client or just a check landing or being able to sign off on something and just mark it as done. And there is still that sense of dopamine. When you take something off the to-do list and you put it into the done list,
Yeah,
that is in itself a reward if you know that you've done it properly.
yeah,
So actually, sometimes it's just seeing something seeing an answer, seeing an answer that you didn't expect to see, finding a solution to something, solving that problem takes us back to question two. If you're a problem solver and you solve problems for a living, it's a really nice coincidence. And if somebody wants to pay you for the privilege, that's a genuine privilege. So helping people and clients
yeah.
saying thank you. clients actually saying thank you is really nice. People forget that that sort
Yeah.
of stuff doesn't count for much. It doesn't appear to count for much. Um, I used to have clients say, "I'm glad you were on my side." I once had I once had a little old lady say, "You were magnificent," which I thought was that chick in quoted.
Small achievement actually means everything to everyone. I mean, like
Yeah,
that's how it works. If you encourage someone to do better, or like if someone's being nice to you, that actually makes your day. Yeah,
I think people make too much of these ideas. You
yeah,
know, "Oh, I need to be able to achieve X. I need to be rewarded by this." And what you're actually doing is you're setting yourself up for a fall.
yeah,
You know, if we think about right and wrong, there's a huge section in the middle which you start off with wrong, and then it's not right, and then it's not wrong, and then it's right. But the chances of something being perfect are actually trivial. So I think one of the problems is we have people coming through into the law who think that that magic bullseye, star prize, glitter coming down from the ceiling, fireworks going off moment is going to happen on a regular basis. But actually, it doesn't. What you get, and the way to be happy about this, is to get a quiet satisfaction for doing a really good job. And if you can do something in a way that you look around and go, "I'm not sure other people would have seen that," that's
yeah.
immensely satisfying.
You are completely right. My fourth question from is, what is the one lesson that you were taught in this entire legal journey of yours? Like it was something that you taught yourself throughout the journey, or something that you learned from this journey throughout your legal career?
I think there are. So the first thing I learned, the one thing I learned from bar school is Michael Beloff, KC, did as a guest lecture, which was entitled "Simple is Persuasive." And he spoke for an hour or 2 hours or however long he did, but frankly, we didn't need to get past the title. So I think that's a really good one. Simple is
Yeah,
persuasive. Um, I think that um, my own sort of phrase was always balance calm self-awareness with forensic intensity, which means be good and don't be a prat about it. But I think the one thing that I've genuinely learned over the years, and I learned it in a slightly non-legal context, is you can't change the past.
definitely.
And actually, when you stop about and think about what we do as lawyers, so much of what we do is starts in the past, and it may be ongoing. It might be a problem that's going to extend into the future. But what you can't do is change where you start because you are here now, and what has happened. And I think that too many people get too bound up in the past and wanting to change it. And frankly, you only need to look at the world. You only need to look at you switch on your TV these days to understand that there's a whole raft of the population of the world um, who would like to change the past. And you're like, that doesn't work. Time flows in one direction and one direction only. So I think if you're looking at one lesson, you can't change the past.
That's a great statement given by you. I personally work on that as well because that's what we all do. We just cry over the past, and we're all just living in our past, and we're not thinking about the future. We're not thinking about the current time. Well, that's something we all should actually work on, honestly. My last question from you is, what is the one advice that you would like to give young lawyers who are just coming inside this field? They're not well known, or they're like first generation lawyers. So what is the one advice that you would like to give them?
It would be very easy to say don't do it. I think take small wins, understand that you can be doing this for 30, 40 years. And I think that you build that from a foundation. You build that from a foundation which is can either, like anything, any foundation you build, you either dig deep and you drive those piles down and say, right, I'm absolutely committed to being this sort of lawyer, and I'm going to do everything I can to be this sort of lawyer doing this sort of work. Or you can go for a broad foundation where you're looking at everything you possibly can and finding out what suits you. I had the great privilege of being able to be the latter sort of lawyer. I came in to do a general civil law pupillage or general common law pupillage, realistically. So I did some crime, I did some family, and crime didn't suit me, and family wandered off and left me to it, and civil was what stuck, and that's what I've ended up doing certainly for the last 28 years of this job. And I think that law is a distillation of the human condition. We see people's lives, we see the highlights of people's lives, and we don't see all the boring bits. And that's why lawyers or lawyers seem to be fascinating. When you're on the outside looking in, you go, law must be fascinating because look, you deal with murder, you deal with this, you deal with all these high points in life. And I still think that the way that you get the most out of it and the way that you can offer the most to your clients is having those wider life views, experiences, skill sets. Um, Everything that we do in day-to-day life is potentially useful to you as a lawyer. Because even if you're just serving somebody in a cafe, you're talking to somebody, you're engaging with somebody, you're understanding what makes them tick, you're reading their body language. And that allows you at a later stage when they're your client or something like that is your client to think about that. But I think the one piece of advice I would give to lawyers, apart from having that big, broad expanse of underlying knowledge, ultimately we're a service industry. So it's not about what you can do as a lawyer and how good you think you are, because there are plenty of other people out there who also think that they're really good, but only one place might be available for you.
Yeah.
But think about the other people in the room. Think about what you can do for clients. Think about how you would want to receive the advice that you, the barrister, are giving if you were the client, or how you would want to receive the submission if you were a judge. And if you're listening to yourself thinking, blimey, if I were listening to me, I'd be getting confused, then you need to come back to simple as persuasive. Um, and accept if you don't know the answer. Because sometimes there isn't.
That
That's me one. I'll probably give you about eight.
that's a great advice, and that is how it should be, because we should always take small steps towards our journey, and like in order for us to do something better, we should always work on it and work for our clients as well. It was an honor to have you, David. Thank you so much for being a part of Mishal's Law Series and being a part of this interview.
Lovely to have the opportunity. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Keep well. Bye bye.